So a lot of artists struggle with marketing their own music, but what if I told you there was a repeatable path you could take every time promoting music to get results like this, where we spent $100 to get a pretty awesome campaign that's probably going to end up being profitable, getting 25, 30, 35,000 streams over the course of the next few weeks, or like this, where I put an initial budget of $350 and I'm currently at 70-something thousand streams and climbing every single day. And the way that I do this is with Facebook conversion ads. And I'm going to dive through that in a sec. But first, I need to explain to you how the Spotify algorithm actually works, because it's a key important aspect behind all of this. By the way, I'm Andrew Southworth. I teach music marketing, music business, and music industry stuff. I'm also a music producer and vocalist. Thank you very much for having me on this channel, and I'll see you in the comments. So if we take a look at Spotify for Artists, you'll see here, this is the song that we ran a $100 Facebook ad campaign on. And the song comes out here, and it gets a respectable amount of streams. This is a pretty small artist, just to give you some perspective. At the start of this, he only had 10 followers, and now he's up to 44. And this song, we start promoting here, it gets some small traffic, but what is this gigantic spike? This gigantic spike is something called Release Radar. And part of Release Radar is to show people that follow you your music. The other aspect is that if the song does really well, Spotify will put your song on the Release Radar for thousands of people who have never heard of you before. And that's what happened with Aharak, this artist right here. And you can see the effect is pretty insane. And so right now he's riding this Release Radar wave. What's going to happen, almost guaranteed, is that after a couple weeks and this picks up more streams, it's going to get added to Discover Weekly. And let me head to my other song here, which is my song, Socialize by Andrew Southworth. And what happened with this is I promoted it with my Facebook ad strategy. It gets a respectable amount of love. And then Friday, the first Friday after the song comes out, it gets added to Release Radar. And it does very well. And then it hits Monday. You see the second spike here. This is Discover Weekly, and the function of Discover Weekly is to show people new music they've never heard before. And it's targeted around music that they'll already be very likely to enjoy. And you can see how it rides this wave, right? It kind of dives down a little bit, does whatever it wants to do, and then it hits Discover Weekly again, because every Monday Discover Weekly updates. The next Monday has another spike, rides down. This little spike is from Friday from, again, Release Radar. This Monday, another spike at Discover Weekly. Monday, Discover Weekly. Doesn't do too good for like a week. And then bam, Discover Weekly. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Now, to give you another example of this song is an artist that I helped with his ads, ran a pretty substantial budget pushing the song, and then here I believe he had a little bit of Release Radar help, but here he gets added to Discover Weekly. So the point of this is we invest a certain respectively small budget in a Facebook ad campaign, usually a couple $100s. And we structure it in a way that gives high quality Spotify data so that Spotify will promote it with their algorithmic playlist. And algorithmic playlists on Spotify are the biggest driver of streams across the platform. So I use essentially the same ad strategy for all of these songs. The only difference is the targeting. So let me show you my screen here, and we can dive into Facebook ads, and I can show you how to set this all up. Basically, I use what's called a conversion campaign. And the reason I use that instead of a link click campaign is because link click campaigns have the tendency to flop. They're very susceptible to bot traffic, accidental clickers, and people who aren't that interested in the first place. So what happens is they click on my ad or swipe up on my ad, and they get taken to a page like this. And this is just a simple page that gives them two options: listen to Spotify, Apple Music, or leave. And basically what happens is that Facebook tracks every time someone clicks one of these buttons. When they click it, it'll send them to Spotify, but it also sends a notification to Facebook saying, hey, this person, they went to Spotify. So I want to talk a little bit about the landing page services that I use. I use something called Hyped, but there's also something called Toneden. There's a Linkfire. There's Feature FM, and you can even use your own website. It doesn't matter what you use. You just have to make sure that it has the ability to embed a pixel in it and trigger a conversion for someone when someone lands on that page and triggers the conversion. By the time someone does 2 clicks for you, they're very interested. So when they get to your Spotify, they're going to save your song. They might listen to it multiple times and add it to a bunch of user playlists and follow you. And all of this stuff is high quality data in the eyes of Facebook. Just take a look at my song Socialize. I didn't do I did a little playlist promotion, but I think I only got it on 3 or 4 playlists on SubmitHub. All of these other, let me go back since all time, all of these other 1,100 playlists are just from me running ads to the song, and people add it to their own playlist because they want to. They're not being forced to or whatever. So if we take a look at this campaign, the way that it's structured is we have our campaign, we have our ad sets, and inside of our ad sets, we have ads. If you're familiar with Facebook, this concept will be familiar to you. And what we do is we split different ad sets inside of our campaign. And what this does is it allows Facebook to figure out which audience is going to resonate best with our specific particular song. And the reason why I have multiple ads inside of each ad set is so that we can find out which ad resonates best with the audience. In this case, I'm just using a super simple thing that I'll show you in a sec, but you can see that every ad set has a different price, and every ad inside the ad sets has a different price. So Facebook can test all of this out and say, well, look here, this ad and this ad are doing much better than the other one in there, so we're going to put more budget behind it and get more results there. If we look at this ad set, it does the same thing. It puts most of the budgets and results behind whatever gets us the cheapest result. From this, we can also learn that in general, ad 1 tends to do better than ad 2 and 3. And just in case you're curious, this is that ad. All right, so now that you have an understanding of how all this stuff kind of works, let's actually make a campaign so you can see the actual process that's behind this. It's simple, but there's a lot of steps along the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into Facebook ads, and we're going to click create to make a brand new campaign. We're going to select conversions because remember, we're using this landing page to trigger conversions. The conversion doesn't happen until someone clicks on this or this button right here. So we select conversions. We're going to name our campaign. I'm just going to call it test campaign. We're going to choose a daily budget. Let's just say $10. If it's your first time, I'd try like $5 just to make sure things are working. And usual prices $10 to $50 a day, whatever is in your budget. Click continue, and now we're in the ad set. You can see on the left-hand side we have campaign, ad set, and ad. That's the structure of any Facebook ad campaign. One of the most critical aspects to this that people struggle with is what to do inside of here. And the problem is that this depends on what service you're using. I'm using Hyped It. So what I use is this Hyped It Smart Link Click, and that's what's programmed into this service called Hyped It. If you decide to use ToneDen, they have a free type of service that does the same kind of landing page. And for that, you would use a view content custom conversion or conversion, and that's what you put in here. So it just depends on what service you're using. You'll need to look at the service you're using to figure out exactly what you put in there. Now, the next most important thing that I do, or that anyone should do when doing this, is you have all this detailed targeting. And what I do is I have a custom saved audience that has every single Spotify country inside of it. So if you go to Google and type in Spotify countries, you'll get this big list of every country that Spotify's in. Because we're using a conversion campaign, you don't really have to worry about bot traffic and stuff like that. Whereas with a link click campaign, you'd be pretty scared running ads in a lot of these countries because there's a good amount of bot traffic in some of them. So I target every single country because I'm using a conversion campaign, except India, because India can often be so cheap it'll just eat the whole budget up. So next we get to age. This is entirely dependent on your type of music. I do kind of future bass electronic music. The track that I just showed is more like dubstep mixed with metal, but same age range for the most part. So I'll do 15 to 44. And it's better to leave it more wide open than more restrictive, so you might even feel comfortable doing something like 13 to 50, for example. Now, always turn off detailed targeting expansion, because what we're going to do is we're going to type in Spotify if we're focused on Spotify, which we are right here. And then if you click this narrow audience button, this will allow you to target Spotify and all these artists. If you were to leave on detailed targeting expansion, what would happen is essentially it's going to find people that don't have Spotify. And even though the artist targeting might be fine, the Spotify thing, you don't want to find people that don't have Spotify. So in here, all we're going to do is we're going to research some artists. Now, I was using the example of that dubstep / metal track, and so I'm going to start typing in some artists who might be similar to that. And so what I do in this case is I might do periphery. You can click suggestions and find some other bands that might be related. You can even choose a genre of music. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have multiple of these ad sets, so we're just going to keep it to, let's do periphery and Northlane. Now, just to make sure that these people like electronic music, I'm going to type in dubstep. and there's only 90,000 people. So in this case, we're actually going to add that metalcore back in. So now we have like 700,000 people. It's a good size audience, and we're finding people that have Spotify and like metal music and like dubstep. Pretty good targeting for the type of music we're going for. So there's a couple different approaches you can take in this placements section. Don't do automatic placements. In fact, if this is your first time doing it, the easiest way is probably just to turn up everything except for story placements. Currently, I do stories combined with most of these options in the feed selection here, but it takes a little bit of extra work. And the story placements is what I've used for months, and I get great results with it. So just stick with stories for now, and then click continue. So here what we do is, this is actually the simplest part. You just select your accounts and upload your ad. So you're just going to do add media, add video, and it's going to put up your video. You're going to grab your link that has your pixel embedded, and you're going to put it inside of here. And then I usually change this to listen now, and then click confirm. All right, so now let me talk about the strategy and timeline behind these ads, because this is actually a critical part. Believe it or not, the first 3 days after a song comes out are the most critical, and can actually have a lasting impact for how well the song will do over its life. In the first week also. So what I do is the first 3 days, I'll have the biggest budget, followed by the next week, and then I'll taper it down over the next following week. So if your budget's like $300, for example, the first 3 days you might do $30 a day. The rest of the week, you might do $20 a day. The second week, you might do 15 a day, and the next week you might do 10 a day, and then ramp it down. And hopefully that comes to something around $300. But make it work whatever your budget is. Just kind of do that proportion, where the first 3 days are the biggest spike per day, and the first week is the biggest spike. And what you should see when you go into your Spotify for Artists is that you have an incredibly high save rate, like over 50% saves to listeners. You should see a very high listen rate, or repeat listen rate, streams to listeners, and you should see a bunch of people adding the song in their playlist, which will mean that when Spotify looks on Friday for what songs to put on Release Radar, they'll see your song is performing hella good, so they're going to push it out to more people.